Hello everyone, welcome to Newsroom Weekly Review, your Middle East U.S. entertainment news here on YouTube. I'm Chella Smith. I'm here most Fridays. I hold the IRAQI Dinar, so I bring you the latest on reforms and economics based on reports put out by the Middle East news media outlets. I do this review weekly and it's based off my interest. Thank you everyone who joins me each week. I appreciate all your continued support through your likes, comments, and shares. Those of you who are joining me for the first time, welcome to Newsroom. If you hold the IRAQI Dinar, maybe this channel will be of interest for you. I'm not a financial advisor. This channel is for entertainment purposes only. I appreciate all the positive feedback as this channel is growing. Thank you everyone again for being here. Let's get right into our news release updates. Shafak News reported on Saturday the oil marketing company SOMO said that Iraqi crude oil productions, including the flows from the Kurdistan region, rose to 18-month high at 4,208 million barrels per day during the month of November. The data shows that the federal exports jumped to 3,273 million barrels per day in November from 3,119 million barrels per day in October, while KRG flows in the months were unchanged at 408,000 barrels per day. Average domestic use, which includes burning crude oil and operating refineries, was 518,000 barrels per day, down 5,000 barrels per day from October. Iraq shares of OPEC plus rose to 4,193 million barrels per day last month from 4,149 million barrels per day in October as the coalition continued to rise the production ceiling. OPEC and its allies have gradually raised production quotas this year in anticipation of rise in the global demand for the oil as the world continues to emerge from the epidemic. A production quota for Iraq in January was set at 4,281 million barrels per day under the OPEC Plus agreement, up from 4,237 million barrels per day in December. Baghdad Asl's Finance Minister Ali Alawi said on Saturday, December 11th, 2021, that the white paper began with the reforms of the public administration of the state and then reforms of the country's finances, noting that the paper is 100% Iraqi's projects aimed at strengthening the capability of the state. The Aslis published the most prominent of what Alawi spoke during the televised interview. Here are some of the comments mentioned. There was financial abundance between the year 2009 to 13, but on the other hand, there were no clear economic policies. Financial resources were transferred from oil sales to government appointments. The increase in employee salaries, entitlements, and contracting due to the financial abundance put pressure on the state finances due to the decline in oil prices. Investment spending in Iraq is large after 2003, but is not in accordance with the regulations, and most projects were motive. There is more waste and misuse of resources than theft or corruption. He also said that there are hospital projects that were approved after the year 2011, but were not completed, and some of them did not have allocations, and the specialists withdrew and some benefited, and structures remain. Small projects are often more beneficial to the economy than large projects. He also said that the white paper is 100% Iraqi projects that aim to which is strengthening the capability of the state. The white paper began with reforming the state public administration and then reforms the country's finances. Iraq can also benefit from its geographical situations to be a transit point by implementing ports and highways linked to railroads and industrial projects. He also mentioned Iraq's radical reforms of systems of managing the economy to face challenges, including the decline in oil prices. He says that the Iraq's economy is based entirely on oil revenues at a rate of 95%. And in the last 2 years, the economy of the major and industrialized countries have stated they're looking for an alternative to oil, and that is a huge danger to them. Iraq's countries have financial investments worth $2 trillion to face the threat of the decline in oil prices, and non-payment of electricity bills by citizens cost the state 15 trillion dinars annually. Iraq poses economic, human energies, and a vision that diagnoses challenges and lays down the means for economic stability. The dinar currency was adopted in Iraq at the beginning of the 20s of the latest century, and each dinar was equivalent to $4.80. Economy news. Baghdad reported on Sunday the central bank announced the signing of the memorandum of understanding with the Central Bank of the United Arab Emirates. A central bank statement received by Al Iqtishad News stated that the governor of the Central Bank of Iraq, Mustafa Ghalib, met with the governor of the Central Bank of the United Arab Emirates. The statement indicated that the two sides signed a memorandum of understanding the enhancing cooperation and development banking relations between the two brotherly countries, noting that the two sides stressed the importance of developing banking relations, training cadres, facilitating the transactions of the private banking sector on both sides, and opening opposite accounts in the manner that ensures the international standards are followed and the due diligence is taken, duly in accordance with anti-money laundering and terrorist financing laws. He also continued to say that the meeting was attended by a number of officials of the Central Bank of Iraq and their counterparts from the Central Bank of the United Arab Emirates. Economy news. Baghdad reported on Sunday that the U.S. Energy Information Administration announced that Iraq's oil exports to the United States increased to 248,000 barrels per day on average during the past week. The administration said in a report seen by Economy News that the average U.S. imports of crude oil during the past week from 8 countries amounted to 5,686 million barrels per day, down by 183,000 barrels per day from the previous week, which amounted to 5,869 million barrels per day. She added, America's imported crude oil from Iraq at a rate of 248,000 barrels per day during the past week, higher than the week before, in which exports averaged 221,000 barrels per day. She noted that most of America's oil revenues during the past week came from Canada at a rate of 3,869 million barrels per day, followed by Mexico at the rate of 625,000 barrels per day, followed by Saudi Arabia at the rate of 393,000 barrels per day, then Brazil at the rate of 233,000 barrels per day. According to the administration, the amount of U.S. imports of crude oil from Nigeria reached an average of 175,000 barrels per day, followed by Trinidad and Tobago at the rate of 72,000 barrels per day, and then Colombia came with 71,000 barrels per day. On a political side, Al-Farat News reported the national advisor, Qasem IRAQI, discussed in his office on Sunday the coordinator of the U.S. National Security Council for the Middle East and North Africa, Brett McCurk, and his accompanied delegations in the presence of the U.S. ambassador in Baghdad, Matthew Tweller, the security and political situation in Iraq, and the region, and discussed the latest developments at the regional and international level. According to the statement by National Security Council, Al-Farat News obtained a copy of the commitment of the United States of America to output of the strategic framework with Iraq, noting that his country, according to the agreement, will not use Iraqis' skies, land, and water as launching pad to attack neighboring countries again, emphasizing his country's support to strengthen Iraqi's capabilities in the face of terrorism. He has stressed that the United States of America does not pose any threat to any country, noting that the common enemy is the terrorist organization ISIS, noting that the strategic interest of the United States lies in a strong sovereignty Iraq government and a strong Iraq. For his part, Al-Ajari indicated that the dialogue with others is important and that Iraq Iraqi's government works with everyone, stressing the truce is in the interest of the country and that Iraq cease to bypass the stage and move towards consolidating its security and stabling and strengthening its capabilities in all fields. Baghdad Magazine News reported the federal Supreme Court postponed on Monday the consideration of lawsuits filed regarding the election results to a date later this month. A judicial source said in an interview with Magazine News that the federal courts held its session Monday to consider the appeal submitted with the election results and demand their cancellations, and heard that the pleading of the lawyers of the Hand of the Al-Fatah's Alliance, Hadi al-Amari, who filed a lawsuit earlier calling for the elections to be canceled and to consider the appeal submitted with their results, noting that the court decided to postpone the case to the 22nd of this month. Economy News Baghdad reported the financial advisor to Prime Minister Mauser Mohammed Saleh expressed his optimism about the expected deficit levels in the next year budget 2022. Saleh said in a statement to the official Al Sabah's newspaper, "There are developments in the features of expected general budgets for 2022, which adopted an oil price of about $50 per barrel for the purpose of calculating average oil revenues throughout the next year in light of the daily export capabilities of more than 3 million barrels of oil." Adding, in the event that spending ceiling is increased by 10% over the current ceiling in 2022 budget, this means that there are precautionary deficit that will be approved by the budget to avoid undesirable fluctuations in oil prices during the next fiscal year. According to the foregoing, the financial advisor to Prime Minister believes that the hypothetical deficit will be 20% of the total spending ceiling and about 8% of the GDP. But the average price of a barrel of oil, if it continues to remain stable at $70, the budget will most likely have an equilibrium situation, and the default deficit gap will automatically cancel from the positive oil revenues differentials. Saleh pointed to the country's continuity that the next year's budget 2022 and its other aspects is offering a medium-term program for investment projects with commitments to the program costs for important and strategic projects according to the social properties, especially those affected with the well-being of the society and its economic priorities being income generating and operating the business cycle in the economy. The next budget will also seek, according to Saleh, to maximize the optimal spending and investment projects with the aim of achieving a growth rate in the country's gross domestic products that exceed the population growth rate and at least 5% or more, which will lead to accelerated reduction in unemployment rates as well. He stressed that these steps will lead to economic recovery in the country. The Central Bank of Iraq Information Office said on December 14, 2021, that the governor of the Central Bank of Iraq meets the Minister of Labor and Social Affairs of the Kyrgyzstan regional government. His development initiatives that brought about a shift in securing liquidity for the real sector, which faced serious challenges after the corona pandemic. For her part, the ministry commended that the central bank's initiatives and contributions to relieving the pressure facing the Iraqi society and praises the bank's support for small projects finance funds in the regions, especially training programs and support for shelters for orphans and homeless, and the role of the Association of Iraqi Private Banks. His Excellency promised to support the ministry plans and programs to alleviate the suffering of their people. Baghdad Muanzin News reports the Central Bank of Iraq announced on Tuesday that it had prepared the draft currency structural study while determining the negative effects when the dollar was re-exchanged to 1,200 dinars. The bank said, according to the official agency, that the central bank has completed the preparation of study of the currency structural project, noting that the timing of implementation of the project depends on bank policy and political and economic conditions of the country, adding that the bank has no intentions of issuing new denominations of currency, noting that continuing to provide new banknotes to compensate for the damaged banknotes, and about the negative effects caused by re-exchange of the dollar to 1,200 dinars in the event that the next House of Representatives issue a decision to do so. The bank stressed that this will affect negativity and will lead to exchange rates in parallel, local markets getting out of control, and consequently sharp fluctuation in exchange rates that lead to harm the interests of citizens and projects, noting that this will cause a destabilization of confidence in the stability of the financial system in Iraq. And such decisions will lead to exit of local investments and production projects from completion, the unemployment crisis as a result of those projects stopping work. Also adding, the increase in the exchange rate led to the increase in the competitiveness of the local products and thus an increase in the market share, as well as a reduction in expander pressure on the Ministry of Finance by 23%, which enables the Ministry of Finance to overcome the crisis resulting from the drop in global oil prices during 2020 and the first month of 2021, explaining that this also led to increase in flexibility of public financing to carry out necessary structural reforms to achieve financial stability in Iraq. With regards to the central bank's foreign currency reserves, the bank stated that the volume of total foreign reserves during the month of December 2021 amounted to $63,793 billion, noting that the volume of net foreign reserves during the current month reached $59,980 billion. The Central Bank of Iraq Information Office released a statement on Wednesday about the Central Bank of Iraq organizes a workshop to open up government documentary credits on Tuesday. The Central Bank of Iraq organized a specialized workshop on the mechanism for opening government documentary credits with the worldwide participation of the private banks. This comes from the role of the central bank in supporting the economy and its contribution to the development of the Iraqi banking sector, in addition to enhancing the confidence of foreign banks in the Iraqi banking sector. The workshop dealt with ways to open documentary credits in accordance with the best international practices. There's been lots of back and forth about the elections. Baghdad Ops Police reported release of news that the Kyrgyzstan Democratic Party on Wednesday said that the understanding with the Satirist movement led by Muqtadar's al-Satars are more advanced than the coordination framework. A member of the negotiation delegation in the Kyrgyzstan Democratic Party, Arfat Karim, said the coordinating framework has not presented a program so far because they are preoccupied with the results. But the current through al-Satar's tweets has a clear program, and his tweets are as if they were written by himself. As the case of uncontrolled weapons, factions, and external interference, among other things, the files, we are one step ahead with the current, and perhaps there are those who believe that we come close to the movement after it's won the majority of seats. And this is a mistake because we have understanding that the movement that precedes the elections and these understandings have developed, advanced, and revived, and we are ahead with them. He continued with several questions. We do not want to be bombed. Who's bombing us? The current or the tire? What is happening in Sinjar? Who supports the PKK? He added, we do not want someone from outside the borders to come and determine who will be our minister. We want the decision to be Iraqis. The coordinating framework urgently needs us, but it attacks us daily and describes Erbil as ISIS or Zionism, and that Erbil looted the money of Basra and others. With that, we sit with the framework for the interest of the nation, and they admitted their mistakes, and we call on them to turn a new page before the country is torn apart. And let us start ruling the country in a tripartite manner between the Shiites, the Sunni, and Kurds without singling out one party against another. This should be interesting to see who takes the seats in the parliamentary elections. It's been an interesting week in the Middle East. That's it for this week's Newsroom Weekly Review, your Middle East U.S. entertainment news on reforms and economics. I try to bring you all the Dinar Iraqi news without having to keep up with all the different outlets. I'm Chella Smith from Newsroom here on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you like my content, give me a thumbs up. I will see you guys next Friday for your next Newsroom update. Shout out and happy birthday to Currency365 for his continued support. If you want to learn about stocks and cryptos, you can join him and his crew for the most recent updates. You can find them on YouTube or Patreon. Thank you everyone again for joining me. Stay warm and cozy and enjoy those Christmas celebrations with your family and friends. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone, and take care. Make sure you join us Fridays, 4 p.m. with Newsroom Updates with Chella Smith Entertainment News. And don't forget us on Sundays for What's Cooking in the Kitchen. You can also find us behind the scenes 24/7 on Snapchat.